Okay. Testing, testing, testing. What do people see? Oh, hey, this is what people see. I'm looking on my phone, and now I wonder if you're getting like multiple layers of feedback here. But looks like a couple people are showing up already. I deliberately started this a little bit early just to see, um, how to set all this up. But now it's all set up, and we got 20 minutes till the presentation starts. So, figured I'd just log in a little bit earlier and see how everyone's doing. So, how is everyone doing? What have you guys done today? What is up in your lives? Oh, Sammy, hello, welcome. Glad you could make it. Let's make you a mod. You're going to be a managing moderator, but don't let the power go to your head. How is everyone's day? Band camp. Oh, what do you play? Going good. Glad to hear it. Flute. Nice. Oh, you're going to Miami? Excellent. Excellent. I I have very few regrets in this life, but one regret I have is not being a band kid. I was homeschooled, but as a homeschooler, I was allowed to join the marching band at my local high school, and I decided, I have too much going on in my life. I don't think I'm going to do it, but I really think I would have really enjoyed and benefited from it had I actually gone for it. I already knew some people at church who were in it, and they were my friends, and I think it would have been a good environment. Enjoy band camp, enjoy the flute playing. I do kind of feel like I missed out a little bit there when I was your age, but made more questionable vibe coded apps. Oh, what did you make? Dare I ask? Preparing for college move in. That's awesome. Big step. Where are you going? What are you studying? Yeah, Heather Landon. It all depends on the environment. It depends on the classmates and the instructors. Can make or break that kind of experience. Hi from Argentina. Awesome. I not to spoil anything, but at some point in the next year, I kind of want to get down to Mendoza, down where you are. I don't know if you're anywhere near Mendoza. It's Argentina is a huge country, but I really, really want to ride the San Diego trolley cars that ended up down there. I don't know if I'm going to get to do it, but it's high on my bucket list. It's very close to Chile, so I could get a bunch of Chile stuff done and then fly over to Mendoza for the day. Um, Going to Purdue. That's a good school. Studying aerospace engineering. That makes sense with your username. That's for sure. Um, okay, so Random Transit Adventures made a desk assistant, a voice assistant. I have not watched anybody's REM contest submissions yet. I always wait till the deadline is passed and then I watch them all back to back. I try not to watch them before the deadline. But I have seen Lily and the name of the person she's working with is escaping me at the moment, but they're putting together a very very interesting looking submission. They've teased it on my Discord, so I literally extended the deadline by a couple of weeks just so I could see what they can make. Montreal, um, awesome city. Really really enjoyed my trip there this year. Do I think Caltrain should use dual mode locomotives to Pleasanton or Well, Berkeley, it's across the bay, so that might be a little bit tricky to get across. But if they build another Transbay tube, that could be a good stopgap solution. Or I mean, I guess you could run up from San Jose, but that's basically the capital corridor already. So I don't know. I feel like dual mode is there's a lot of potential there, but we shall see. Lake Mary, Florida. Don't know where that is, but now I have to Google it. Um, Mapping Lake Mary, Florida. That is. Oh, you're kind of near Orlando. Is that like Sunrail territory, or are you too north for Sunrail? Los Angeles. I'm clocking in from Boston myself. Got the New England sunset right out my window here. And right behind me is my, we'll talk about this later, but this is my recording setup. So we got the mic that I use to record all my voiceovers. I've got a SEPTA map. I got a MBTA map from Ward Maps that's like, how do I do this? Here we go. It's all the T lines that exist and all the T lines that used to exist and no longer do. So you have like the Atlantic Avenue elevated and stuff like that. Then there's, of course, I turn it. There we go. It's my wedding picture up there. Not that much going on. I'm just sitting in the room. Yes, Boston is a very, very interesting city when it comes to transit. I would say, I mean, New York and Chicago are like the pre-war powerhouse cities. You got the massive rail networks, the L, and of course the MTA. Just huge, huge, huge networks, like above and beyond anything else in the country. And then Philadelphia and Boston are like the quirky, wonky cities where, like, yeah, there's not going to be as many trains. They're smaller cities, but the trains are so weird in the best ways, and you don't really get that in New York or Chicago, like the Norristown High Speed Line, or the Mattapan Trolley, or just all of the funky little things that those two cities have. Both of them could, keep, each one could keep you occupied for like a week in terms of making transit content. Okay, going back to the chat. South Australia, of course, that instantly makes me think of "In South Australia I was born, heave away, haul away." And I don't know if any of you know that song, but it's a folk song from forever ago. Hello from Chicagoland, Lake County. What countries in Africa besides Ethiopia or South Africa do you think might start having a transportation revolution? I mean, keep an eye on Nigeria. They are doing some pretty interesting things. They're building a metro system for the largest city. I always say it wrong. Lagos, I believe, is the correct pronunciation, but don't quote me on that. They're building out intercity rail. They're building out that sort of thing. Apparently, I believe it was Zimbabwe. It might be Zambia, but I think it's Zimbabwe is building a light rail system now, according to PensiFan. I truly haven't been keeping up with that part of the world a ton outside of Ethiopia, but that's what I'm aware of so far. I mean, Algeria already has like a bazillion tramways, a couple of metros, and a pretty robust intercity rail network. Morocco is just building up, building and building because they're going to host the World Cup soon. Um, let's see. Oh yes, Sammy, we absolutely need to do Mattapan. I know you're here for another week and a half, and we are going to make that happen. Don't you worry about that. Oh my gosh, my parents went to Haverford. That's awesome. Skokie Swift, I have done that. Not on my channel, but I have done the Skokie Swift before. That could I may well come back and do a video on that at some point. D-Line video when I shot it. It is in the works. It will. Oh, do you mean D-Land in Los Angeles? I have not gotten around to filming that yet. I have a video on the Deep Ranch in Boston coming out, so maybe that'll tide you over. I don't know. Will I ever make a video dedicated to one of Chicago's transit systems? I do have a Metro Electric video that I shot with Stormy Cara prior to shooting the South Shoreline video. It's not very long, so I feel like the only way to really pad out the time would be to add a lot of historical background or just make it a shorter video and upload that alongside a longer video. Otherwise, probably. Oh my gosh, yes, Sammy, Egypt. Egypt is going crazy with transit. They're building high-speed rail. They're building monorails. They're building metros. I really need to get out there at some point. Egypt is building transit like they once built pyramids, shall we say. Harare, Zimbabwe. Thank you. Um, am I planning to go to another continent? Well, I am definitely, and you heard it from me, absolutely in no way am I planning to go to the United Kingdom, France, Belgium, and Germany, possibly in the next 5 weeks or so. That is not happening. Let me just quell the rumors right there. But if I was, I would be planning a bunch of videos in those places. After that, Latin America is probably my number one target. My OT job, which I love, has limited paid time off. So, as much as I would love to go out to Africa or East Asia, those are probably going to be a little further down the road. I can knock out, pretty much anything in the Western Hemisphere in a long weekend, um, which is just a crazy thing to say. But, um, definitely Chile and Argentina would be right there at the top of the list, for various reasons, which I will go into when I go there. Um, Cape Cod Railfan Day, is that a thing? I haven't heard anything about this. Please tell me more. Vancouver, British Columbia. Um, Great place. I have done the Cape Flyer. I will be doing it again on Friday, but not to the Cape, if they let me. And no further spoilers, but keep an eye out for that. Um, let's see. Where in the USA should I visit? I mean, absolutely New York City, and then like do Boston, do DC. If you feel like it, do Philly. Philly's a little rough around the edges. It's a bit of an acquired taste. I personally love it. Many people who are close to me do not. Um, Sunrail whenever I have a free weekday, probably the same day I would knock out the Jacksonville monorail because it's a couple hours drive. Um, Belgium. Yes, Belgium may get some recognition at some point on this channel, but certainly not anytime soon. Um, let's see. Argentina in a long weekend would be. I've done Hawaii in a long weekend. It's a pretty similar distance. Um, Brazil would be really interesting. I part of the reason I would pick Chile over Brazil is simply because I know some people who are there. I don't really know anyone in Brazil, but I mean, if you guys are in, if any of you watching from Brazil, comment below. Maybe I'll go to Brazil. Um, let's see. Which videos do better? Content including food, Calcadon, or both? I don't think those things particularly influence how a video performs. I think they're just things that, um, when I add them to videos, it makes the video more colorful. All right, we got about 6 minutes until I will be starting the PowerPoint presentation on making train and transit content. So drop if you have any further burning questions that you'd love to ask me, drop them in the comments. Um, what time do I expect this to be done? Probably about 9 o'clock, sometime around that time, Eastern time, which would be what time would that be in? What's the Canadian province that does the half-hour time zone thing? Is that Newfoundland? Someone ought to call Bankster. Yes, Bankster. Oh my gosh, microtransit. Let me tell you, I have something in the pipeline with that. I did the microtransit in Arlington, Texas, and to be honest, it's not as egregious as some other microtransit I have tried, perhaps a little more locally. That's all I'm going to say right now, but there is something in the pipeline with that. Oh yes, Australia has the half-hour time zone things too. Is that just for what does ACST stand for? Aw, thank you for saying that, the California Rail fan. I do really like I I don't really like making train videos that don't have the world around the trains, and for me, that's my world. I love food, I love my wife, so I love having them along. Oh yes, the whole of India. Also, Why don't we pay more attention to Indian railways as American rail fans? Like, it's interesting to me how massive of a system it is and how little we talk about it. I also don't really see that much from Indian rail fans or you know in the online spaces I'm in, which makes me curious. Like, why aren't we more connected to that sphere of railroading? Given that on the global stage, it's so massive. Um, Buses in Cape Cod, CCRTA. That's the name of the bus. And I thought about doing a video where like I try to ride from the Cape Cod Canal all the way to Provincetown entirely on local buses. You could probably do it. I'm not sure how interesting of a video it would be, but Australian Capital Central Standard Time for South Australia and Northern Territory, and is there a 15-minute time zone in Bhutan, Belmont, North Carolina. Um, Something to do research on, of course. 45-minute time zone. That's interesting. I've never heard of that. Okay, Solitas Mexican in downtown Orlando. Correction. I should try that with my wife because if I get Mexican food without calcedon, that would be, um, let's just say that would not be appreciated by all members of the party. Colorado Connector Coco. I am not opposed to the name. I am not opposed to the branding. Like I said on my last live stream, my real beef with it is the use of generative AI to promote it. Like, as you will see in my presentation, I have very strong feelings about generative AI and they're not very positive. So, that's really the only thing that bothers me. Um, yeah, I think it's like there are certain conceptions that people might have about Indian railways that might not entirely be accurate to where they are today. Like they've electrified almost their entire national network just in the last like I'm gonna say 15 years. They're building metros like it's nobody's business. They're building their first like higher speed and high speed systems, and yeah, it is also just plain difficult to get there compared to like Japan or Germany. Oh my gosh, the AI, orange line map, that was that I had thoughts about that. Um, yeah, you absolutely said it. Half the point of taking a train is having the excuse to walk around while you're zipping to a destination. Um, Ace Train. I have for years wanted to do a video on Ace Train, but the timing has never worked out because I have family in that area, and we visit pretty often, but on trips when I have extended amounts of time, at least in the past, it's always really been devoted to spending time with family. I found it fairly difficult to schedule around the Ace train. So I'm gonna wait till there's a time when I'm there on a weekday and see if that can happen. Um, I know. I have very strong thoughts about AI. I think it's a fantastic tool for doing research because it can pull up all kinds of obscure articles that are written by humans and link you right to that. And then you can read what humans wrote, but it can do that searching a lot quicker than Google can. It's great for math. It's great for, if I tell it, like I keep detailed spreadsheets to keep track of my videos. And if I tell it, like, hey, write this formula that takes this thing from this sheet and stick it here, and it'll just write me an Excel formula. I really like that. But none of that's creative work. It's all basically the things I would use Google or a calculator for, but more powerful. And I really, really appreciate that. I don't want it to start doing my job, which is the creating and the imagining and the making. I just want it to do the numbers. Um, yes, you see, AI from a research standpoint, the Rallying for Transit says it can lead you to useful sources, but I wouldn't cite it itself as a source. Um, okay, so we got 32 people in here. Um, I think I'm gonna start the presentation here. And this is, I believe, I will be able to crop this short in what is it, post production, so that the version that you watch if you watch the recording is going to start now. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to a Classy Whale live stream. I am delighted to have all 30 of you here, and hope some more people will be joining us soon. Tonight, I will be giving, for the first time in 3 years, my presentation on how to make good train and transit videos for YouTube. Although, if you also create on shorter form content, I'm sure many of these ideas are applicable to what you would like to do as well. And I'm going to bet a lot of you watching this stream or watching the recording are really interested in making your own content. That's one thing I love about social media, is that yeah, I make content and you guys are my audience, but you are also creators and I can be your audience. And it can be sort of a conversation and exchange. And I really, really like that. So without further ado, I'm going to pull up the chat on my phone so I can still keep track of what everybody is saying here and who is on the stream. But then I'm going to switch over to my PowerPoint here. And can I minimize my own? It's weird seeing myself on the phone and also seeing myself on the streaming software. It's just a little disorienting. Um, okay, we are so back. We are going to start the presentation here. So this presentation is how to make fantastic train and transit YouTube videos by me, Caleb, the creator of Classy Whale. Before we begin, I know we've been chatting for a bit. Go ahead and introduce yourselves. Tell me a little bit about yourself and maybe the content that you create or would like to create. How to game the urbanist versus tourism algorithm. That is a fascinating way of thinking about it. I haven't really thought it through quite that way. I like to try to thread a needle where, like, if you're a tourist, I want my videos to get you into urbanism, and if you're an urbanist, I want my videos to get you into tourism. Or my videos to represent the kind of tourism you would be doing as an urbanist. Okay, so Heather Landon says, I do more intuitive content, but I want to make proper movies and TV series. Long-term goals here. That is awesome. Love a good long-term goal. Do you have some ideas knocking around for that already? Sammy says, well, you know me. Yes, that is Sammy Marco. Sammy is a friend of mine, and he is amazing. Go check out his channel if you haven't already. Let's see. Oh, where I got to Classy Whale. So I've shared this on a number of Q&As before, but it's named after a paperweight we used to have. It's a little whale-shaped paperweight. I thought it was classy. That's where I got the name of the channel. Nothing more than that. Rallying for transit, imagining better mass transit in the U.S. by making better transit systems, and let's see, South Coast Mass Rail Fan. I mostly upload rail fanning videos, but I'm working on making videos on my personal MBTA expansion ideas. That's an awesome concept. I would love to see that. Random Transit Adventure says, I do whatever I want. That is actually a good way of thinking about content. We'll get into that shortly. California Rail Fan does train and transit-oriented content with a fair bit of urbanism involved. They have one video out right now, and you should watch it. I will make sure I check that out. You guys can keep writing introductions if you'd like. I'm going to start scrolling on here. My whole thesis for tonight. The key to good social media creation is blank. What do you guys think should go in this blank? Transit-related trip reports. That is a very good thing to make videos about. You've come to the right place. So what do you think the key to good social media content is? What do you think should go in this blank? Yep, okay, the California Rail Fan has anticipated my next slide. It is storytelling. The key to good social media content is storytelling. You, as a creator, are a storyteller. You are telling a story, if you're watching my channel, probably about trains or transit. But no matter what you're making content about, the principles of storytelling still apply, even if it's nonfiction, even if it's just I went out in my backyard and filmed a train. If the train goes through your backyard, which would be super cool. Um, let's see. What some other people says, or I'm just catching up on the chat here. Some people say engagement or engagement bait. That is also a good key to social media content. I feel like that's a subset of storytelling. A good story should engage the viewer or the listener. Marketing. Being engaging while factual. Yes, absolutely. Integrity, paramount to whatever you're doing. Microphone that doesn't sound like you're speaking through a bag of orange peels. Okay, that's not the key, but it is a key, and we will get to that. Okay. So I'm going to skip over this question because you guys have really mostly shared your answers to this question already. We're going to move right on to here's how I tell stories. Tonight I figured I'm going to break down my creative process for making classy whale videos, and hopefully there's something that you guys can glean from that. This is a lot of stuff I've learned mostly through trial and error over the past couple of years. So when I first started Classy Whale, well, I started Classy Whale the channel when I was in high school, but I didn't really post anything about trains specifically. I just kind of posted whatever I felt like, and it grew slowly. I got some following from my classmates in my online school and from church. That kind of petered off when I went to college. I didn't really make much in college because college is busy, and I had a lot of other things that I was kind of prioritizing. But then right when I got out of college, COVID was just lifting. I got the USA Rail Pass, and I met Miles in transit. And I'm like, you know what? I really like what he's doing, making transit and trains into stories, and I want to start doing that too. But I wasn't really sure what those stories were going to be about. So I tried a lot of different topics. I tried, as you can see on the left, my very first sort of modern Classy Whale video was just a vlog going to a transit museum. Um, then I tried doing videos about that weren't about trains or trains, that were just about like historical sites, and that didn't do very well. I tried doing stuff about heritage operations, stuff about model trains, and it was fun to experiment with different topics. But I really found that what really stuck with people was stuff that was more about either Amtrak or urban transit, the kind of trains that you could ride every day. And I feel like a lot of that's because a lot of my audience initially came over from Miles in Transit, so they kind of wanted something similar. But I really ended up falling in love with that and building on that. And in those early years of developing the channel, I also wasn't sure what my style was going to be. At first, I was like, do I want to talk to the camera more like a Miles in Transit type of video? Do I want to do more narrating to a microphone and having it all be sort of pre-scripted? Do I want to do kind of a combination? And eventually I kind of settled on that last piece, which would be um, having videos that are part vlog and part narration. So they're more educational and a little bit more like top down than a Miles in Transit video, but not quite as presenter style as like Trains Are Awesome or RM Transit. Kind of want to kind of be somewhere in the middle there, where the version of me that you hear on the microphone is very professional and organized, and the version of me with the camera is like, "What is a train?" Something like that. And this particular video in St. Louis was kind of what I feel like was the launching point for making the style of video I do now, which is like a little bit longer form and exploring all the different quirks of a system. Okay, so I do have a couple of questions on screen here. There's already a lot of stuff going on in the chat. I'm going to do my best to respond to people in the chat. Oh, you make videos about the aging knockoff SkyTrain system. I love the People Mover. People hate on it. It is small, but I love it. It's just so quirky and bizarre, and just it. No other city in the U.S. has one, so be proud of it. Um, let's see. Cities Transport Detroit. Well, you've come to the right place. Hopefully, you'll have a couple of ideas for how to be a good storyteller. And I think you probably know more than you think you do. Storytelling, like once you start learning about how it works, you begin to see it everywhere, including in media that you love. Um, yeah, I did. I did briefly glance at Binks Reel's video. I will be fully honest that I did not watch the whole thing because I've been super busy the last couple days. But that is interesting that that tends to talking about the very real reality of racism in this country and how it historically has shaped our urbanism. That unfortunately that seems to be a negative thing. I do try to, especially when I've visited places like New Orleans and Atlanta and coming up Charlotte. I filmed that; it's going to be coming out in a couple weeks. I really do try to hone in on places where damage has been done to historically black communities, and um, thus far, I haven't received a ton of pushback on that, but then again, I don't generally tend to have those be the main topics of the videos. So I do really want to take a closer look at Banks Rail's video and engage with that a little bit more thoroughly. But let's see where Portland is on the list for sure. It's one of the three light rail systems I haven't done yet. Um, well, thank you, California Rail fan. How do I speak about trains and buses in public without being told to shut up? That is an important question. We will absolutely get to that. The only way to find out is to go for a ride. Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's. I feel like that might be a little too generic to trademark. We shall see. Um. Okay, we're uh getting down to catching up on the chat. How do I meet fellow transit enthusiasts? Discord. Discord's amazing. Okay, we are going to keep moving on the presentation here. So, when it comes to conceptualizing a video, now that I do have an audience, I do have a little bit of a rule with myself. Basically, I for as long as I've had a channel, I've only made videos that I truly want to make. I never want to make any videos that are just purely serving the algorithm. However, I do now that I have a bit of a platform, when I'm deciding what to make a video about, I do need to be realistic with myself of, how well this video is going to do. If a video does better, that's going to be, more performance, more money. But the reason I'm doing YouTube is to have fun. So sometimes I'll just do a video that I know is not going to do super duper well, but it's fun for me. Like for example, going to Point Roberts, which apparently Geography Now and Noel Phillips have now been doing. I guess I kicked off Point Roberts summer. Probably not. They probably weren't inspired by me. It was probably just a happy coincidence that everyone's going to Point Roberts now. But I was the first, so maybe there's something like that. Um, I do notice that the best performing videos on Classy Rail are consistently ones about usually light rail systems, sometimes metros that are like in mid-level American cities, so not quite like the. I know some creators have found that like New York tends to do the best, and I've really not found that to be the case. Maybe I'm just not super good at promoting my New York content, but like West Coast cities, cities that like have more recent light rail systems that are kind of overlooked, those tend to do very very well, especially on the West Coast. Um, I do tend to do Caleb didn't do his research. That hasn't happened as often just because I've gotten better at doing research, but revive that. I have noticed as I've been making videos that certain concepts don't tend to perform very well with audiences. One that I've noticed a lot of creators try to start out with that tends to not do as well is local buses. Um, a local bus system is, especially if you're really just getting into transit for the first time, both as a rider and as a creator, incredibly fascinating. I had some many great afternoons getting to know the Red Rose transit system in Lancaster shortly after I got into making Classy Rail videos. But ultimately, those videos weren't particularly noteworthy to people outside of Lancaster County because trains are just for some reason people really like trains, and buses I think come across as a little bit more generic to some people. So I have found that when I've wanted to make videos involving local buses, those videos, if I want those videos to perform well, they do tend to need to be part of a bigger picture, such as this one on the left, where I tried to go from Philadelphia to Harrisburg using only local transit. That's a bigger concept of, okay, how interconnected are these different systems? SEPTA and Chesco and RRTA and Rapid Transit. Or on the right, one of my more recent videos where I took GATRA to go to this abandoned train station, and it did end up using that video to highlight some of the areas in which the GATRA system might be lacking or might need a little bit more improvement. Um, Sammy says, yes, buses do so bad. It's annoying, but I get it. Miles seems to be the only one that can just ride one and get views. I mean, when you have a very big channel like Miles, when you do anything, people want to watch it because they want to see what you have to say once you build a bit of an audience. And that said, I've found even now that I have a bigger audience, for me, that hasn't quite happened yet. Um, LRT is the friendly mass transit, cheap, cheerful, performative, unless the city has some decent right of ways. Um, yes, light rail is it's new, it's approachable, it's something a lot of people are decently familiar with, where they're like, "Oh wait, that city has a light rail?" Or one thing I love to do is make videos that, if you go back a couple slides here, I'll say something very nice about a system like rail is too good, or New Jersey built a perfect light rail. It's what I call anti-rage bait. I say something very nice about a system that people have a lot of strong feelings about, and they get in my comments and they're like, "No, you're exaggerating. You're such a yimby," and blah 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 blah. And I was like, "Well, thanks for the view." Anyways, and let's take a look at the chat to see what else people are saying. New York, I think that the reason New York City transit content can sometimes feel a little boring is because so much of the New York City system is the same. Like, all the trains look fairly similar, they operate on fairly similar patterns. The things that make the individual lines and routes distinct are a little less flashy than in Philadelphia or Boston or somewhere like that. Do Canadian vids or American vids tend to do better? I think American vids tend to do a little bit better, but Canadian vids or Canada is so culturally similar to the US. I don't know if you guys watch JJ McCullough, but um, one thing I've learned from watching his videos and going to Canada is we have a very, very shared cultural sphere now that really carries over to transit. So Canadian videos tend to do about as well as US videos. I'm really more curious about, not that I'm going to Europe, but if I was going to Europe, I'd be curious about how those videos were going to be. Um, what else? What else? What else? And scrolling down in the chat, trying to see what everyone says. You want to do a video on the concept of combining Metrolink and Commuter Express, which runs nice coach buses for commuters like Go Transit in Ontario. Yes, that would be a fantastic idea, and I would love to see it. Um, oh yes, that's another thing that Miles does is he has a very good on-screen presence. He is very natural with the camera. That comes from years of practice. I've known him for quite a while, and he's just gotten better and better. And also just the fact that he always has a buddy with him to kind of banter with. That really adds to those videos, I think. Um, Sammy's trying to get more people in his shoots. I noticed you've had 29 down the line on some of your videos, and Tom from Trains Are Awesome, and I think I've even cameoed in a couple of those myself. Um, almost down to the bottom of the chat, and then we'll continue. What's a PG term that means the opposite of rage bait? I don't know. I like to call it anti-rage bait because I'm still baiting people to be angry, but I'm not saying something inflammatory. I'm saying something good. um, oh yes, and Canadians, like, per capita, the transit ridership there does very, very well. So NJ Transit Productions, can we do a collab? If you are 18 or over, send me an email with what you are conceptualizing. And if you are under 18, then send me a Discord message in a public channel on my Discord and tell me what you're thinking about. I'm not going to definitively say yes or no. If anyone wants to collaborate with me, I'm just going to put this out there now. Anyone wants to bring me into one of your videos, send me a pitch. And if I think it sounds interesting, I may well be game depending on my schedule. Um, Joy baiting. Joy baiting is, I think, that's a good name. How do I join your Discord? The link to my Discord is in the description of every single video that I publish. Um, yeah, I mean, Discord message works as well, but I generally, I mean, Discord, email, whatever you prefer. Okay, I've caught up to the chat. We shall continue. I'm going to skip over this part just because we are running a little bit behind schedule. But generally, like I said, what I know works for a concept is stuff about mid-sized transit that's maybe not quite as talked about, but is in places that are recognizable. This thumbnail I think works super well. It's got different engaging words like got like really strange, actually forgotten, weird, and then you have stuff like I've kid the word California in the title. You have the word Sacramento in the thumbnail. You have my face, so it's a personable video. You have two different vehicles in the bright colors with a bright sun, blue sky behind the trains, and then you have my little whale logo and the bright red text. So I feel like this sort of thing is my jumping off point. So for a video that I'm working on later this week, I'll be covering the San Jose VTA. So I'll show you a little bit of behind the scenes of making this particular content. I'm going to skip over this question as well since we really talked about that. Once I have a plan concept, as our president has once said, I have concepts of a plan. Once I have concepts of a plan, I will start researching. And that research often involves the logistics of shooting a thing. It involves reading the basics of a system. I'll try to read through some or all of the Wikipedia page for the system that I'm covering. And then when I make a plan for a video, I usually crowdsource. I'll go on my Discord and ask people for recommendations. I'll make a YouTube community post and ask people for recommendations there. And then based on that, I'll kind of highlight on the map of the system where I want to go and why. And then I'll start drawing up an itinerary to be able to visit some of those different locations. And this map basically shows about the route that I took when I shot the VTA system. So that one's already filmed. It's going to be out probably this week or next. Cities Transport Destroyed says, I have a question. I am 13 and I have a high pitched voice. I am scared to speak in my vids for stories about transit. Is it not a good idea to make stories on YouTube? I would say that as long as what you're saying is well spoken and well written, um, people will respect you. If there's a lot of pauses and ums and ahs and that sort of thing, that's going to turn people off. But no matter what your voice sounds like, if your script is well written, I think that will go a long way towards making some quality content. Also, one thing I love about filming, I usually like to bring a friend with me. Ideally, somebody who is local to the area, but also somebody who's familiar with me and how I like to film. So Josh is in so many of my videos nowadays, and I've really developed a good working relationship with him as we make videos together. Walter is another favorite to bring on the channel. I've had Sammy Marco on a couple of videos lately. He's so much fun to work with. Just people that I know and trust in the transit space. Always good to have a buddy. Also, just keep in mind that if you make a plan to go out and film content, no plan survives unscathed. This is me this past weekend when I went to Charlotte and my glasses fell apart. I had to tie them together with dental floss, and poor Josh had to pick me up in Charlotte and take me to an eye doctor, where we spent like an hour trying to get my glasses fixed. And so that plus the fact that the link system was undergoing track work and on 30-minute frequencies on the blue line meant that I didn't film nearly as much of the light rail as I'd hoped to, but I did have sort of a base plan to work off of for that. Here we go. When you go on transit adventures, do you like big plans or going with the flow? Leave your answers in the comments. I'm gonna keep moving on here just to make sure we have enough time for everything. But when it comes to filming, the best gear is what you have. Most phones nowadays are really good at capturing video. I would really encourage you, if you're just starting out making videos, you don't necessarily need to buy a bunch of gear. You just need to have a good phone with a good camera and go out and shoot with that. And if you are really, really enjoying it and getting some traction for your channel, then by all means, invest in a good camera. I use a GoPro Hero 12, and consistently it takes better video than my phone, except for in low light or close up, which is when I use my phone. But don't make that be your first purchase. However, I do feel like audio equipment is very, very important. I'll touch on that a little bit more later, but I found that I really respect creators who use wireless mics with their cameras, and I'm so lazy that I've never bothered to really invest in that kind of setup. I usually just use my camera's audio for better or for worse. Yes, okay. Luau 5974 says, second to the best gear is what you have. Um, well, the California rail fan bought a camera for rail fanning, but then found out that they love photography and videography. That is awesome. Yeah, and that's a really good skill to have, especially maybe if you have family members who are going through a major life event, like getting married or getting engaged. That can be a huge blessing to them as well. Um, and of course, just there's so many great things to photograph and videograph in our everyday life. No shortage of material, especially in California. I love the West Coast; such a beautiful place. Um, Oh, Sammy says if you want to buy an extra, I would highly recommend buying an external wireless mic that plugs into the phone. Yes, I have filmed with that a couple times. I've really appreciated the results. I'm just lazy. Don't do as I say, or don't do as I do. Do as I say on that one. Um, all right. Yes, Calcadon keeps it so real. She absolutely does. Insert crowdfunding for Caleb's new camera. Oh, no, I do. I don't need crowd. I don't do crowdfunding anymore. um, buy yourself a camera. Your Sony died rail fanning. Oh, I'm sorry, random transit adventures. Okay, so what do you film when you're filming? I try to, in my itineraries that I make, I try to have as many line side stops as possible because I do want to show the experience of riding the vehicle, like, the out the window shots, but I do want to try to maximize how many arriving and departing shots I have because ultimately that's eye candy and that will get people sticking around and I can reference them later in other videos. I always like to try to highlight the passenger experience. I don't always do a great job of this. It really helps when there's not a lot of people on the vehicle, but this was the San Jose VTA on a Saturday on the orange line, so that wasn't a problem. You can see Walter back there behind the post, but I really like to show the passenger experience when I'm riding transit because oftentimes the people who watch my videos aren't just foamers. They're also people who just want to learn more about the transit and transportation that might be available to them. So I like to provide that information. Patrick Dingus says if you have multiple people, like for instance a presenter and a camera operator, I found that having one phone for filming video and one phone for recording audio works quite well. That is a good tip. I hadn't really thought about that, but that is a very, very good tip. I will keep that in mind. Um, let's see what else people are saying. Wireless mics are great as long as they don't turn off randomly. Exactly, the Hungry Transit fan. That's what I'm always afraid of. I think what I need to do is just buy one that physically plugs into my camera. Um, but that might be a little cumbersome, especially if I'm flipping it back and forth. I could get tangled up fast. You named your okay, this is slightly off topic, but Cities Transportation Detroit says I named my cat Nova Bus. That is a great name for a cat. Um, Photoshopping people into empty scenes might be fun and also way too much work. Yes, if you would if you want to be the person who goes through Classy Wheel videos and photoshops people into empty train cars, be my guest. um, One thing that different people have different preferences for is talking to the camera. Um, on the one end of the spectrum, you have creators like Nonstop Eurotrip who literally do not show their face or their name and do everything in voiceover so that it's very like professional and sort of you're really just focusing on the trains themselves and not really on the presenter. On the other hand, you have someone like Miles in Transit who does everything to the camera. There's hardly any voiceover. I try to go somewhere in the middle. I think when I first started out, I would try to do more of the presenting, the narration. Like, I'm at this place, and it was built in this time, and this is, how the transit operation works. But I did feel a little awkward doing that in public around a bunch of people while also not being entirely sure what I was going to say. So, what I do nowadays is I don't really do that unless I feel very confident or knowledgeable about a thing. I typically try to have most of that be done in voiceover, but I do try to be present on camera, more just describing what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, and reacting to the environment, and of course, bantering with whoever I am filming with. And if you hear something like gunshots behind me, it's just Calcadon chopping vegetables. So don't stress about that for me. Um, let's take a look at the chat. Just don't forget to clap when you start recording, so it's easy to sync the audio. Yes, that is very important. Um, Golden rules of filming. Number one, never trespass. I had somebody in my comments section on the Pawtucket Central Falls station video saying that I was just this wuss for not trespassing. And he's only gone to jail twice for it. I'm like, I would rather go to jail 0 times. Don't trespass. You have the First Amendment right to film trains from a publicly accessible location by and large, with obvious exceptions like government facilities and stuff like that. Um, don't make your case difficult for yourself by breaking rules. And that also follows never film where it's not allowed. There are some systems out there that just don't allow videography. The most famous being Port Authority Trans Hudson, or PATH, in New York City. I filmed a couple shots there before I knew it was illegal, but and no one stopped me from doing that. But since I found that out, I'm like, okay, well, I guess there's not going to be a PATH video on Classy Wheel because I'd be breaking the rules by doing that. Um, Never ever film fellow passengers' faces close up. It can be very easily unnerving to fellow passengers. When I've shot out the window, I've been very careful not to point my camera anywhere near passengers when I'm like putting it up to the window or taking it away from the window or moving it to a different window, because people can get nervous when there's a camera, for a split second in their face. So just be very, very courteous to the people around you. If there are people who end up in your shots, consider if you have a software capable of it blurring their faces, just to be, again, to be a courteous fellow passenger. If you're self-conscious about filming, two things you can do. One, go with another person. If they hear you talking to the other person about what you're doing, they're less likely to think you're some kind of weirdo and more likely to think you're a cool journalist. Or dress up nice. Wear something nicer than you normally do to show that you mean business and that you're really serious about showing people about the trains and transit you're talking about. Taking a look at the chat. Caleb's live stream pronunciation right now is less accurate than in his videos. Yes, I will get to that. I will get to that. Um, Fomer's doing crimes gives the rest of us a bad name. Yes. Oh my gosh. Please send that to the guy who stuck a camera to a BART train 3 years ago. That I got to do a bit of a Twitter war with that guy. I'm no longer on Twitter. um, um, Oh, what do you do if a passenger harasses you? I mean, absolutely keep a low profile. Do not in any way try to um, be as intentional as you can be not to end up in that situation in the first place. I'm not saying that if it happens, it's your fault necessarily, but there are steps you can take, like, for example, maybe filming on a phone instead of a regular camera, or being with, like I said, dressing up, or being with a group of people instead of being by yourself. Um, Having someone to spot in case something's going on. Um, and then if someone's giving you trouble, do not engage, do not push back, do not say, "Hey, I have a right to film here." Just respect that they're a little pissed off and go somewhere else. And I'm sorry to say that, because you're not necessarily doing anything wrong, but you want to really be careful not to put yourself in an unsafe situation that way. So I'm sorry I couldn't give you a better answer on that, but that's just kind of my philosophy on that. And if someone is truly doing something, like if they're threatening something, or if they're, I don't know, throwing wadded up tissues at you or something, talk to a transit employee for sure. Make sure that is reported. See it, say it's sorted, or see something, say something. I guess. Um, OMG! So I can't do interpretive watercolors on your path commute. No, but to be fair, that commute would be so short that you probably wouldn't have time to do that. I feel like there should be a rule that if you can speed paint a good painting on your path commute, you should be allowed to do that. But that's just my suggestion. The Port Authority can take that or leave it. Um, okay, that was a really good question from Cities Transport Detroit. Um, let's see. Yeah, so from my experience, and I'm not a lawyer, so this is not legal advice, but when transit agencies have policies against commercial filming, that's more like making a short film or making a documentary or making a movie. Um, and they'll explicitly say like personal use photography is okay. And while I don't know if this is how it plays out legally, again, this is not legal advice. What I have experienced and I've seen other YouTubers experience is that typically making content for social media with a handheld camera falls under personal use. Also, back up your footage as soon as you can. I have had a memory card blowout on my last Europe trip, and I lost two great videos worth of footage because I decided to buy a cheap memory card from a German grocery store instead of a SanDisk. And I lost an entire day's worth of filming in Frankfurt and on the Flix train system that I will definitely not be reshooting this September. Anyways, taking another look at the chat. I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on my other YouTube channel. um, let's see. We're gonna skip right ahead to writing. My setup that I like to use when I write is I'll have my footage in a timeline of a video editor like Final Cut Pro, and then I'll have a Google Docs open at the same time. So this way I can kind of write my script as I'm referencing my footage. I know what comes in what order. I know what to talk about when. I can even leave notes for myself for bits of the footage where I'm talking to the camera, so I can know how to synchronize everything. But this way, I have the start to finish of the footage because most of my videos are travel logs, so they're beginning to end. So all the clips are already roughly in the order that I want them to be in. Then I can reference that, go back and forth between that and my Google Doc. Ultimately, I also do a lot more research. One thing I really like to do is I don't do a ton of deep research into a transit system until I've written it. So if you meet me when I'm filming a Classy Wheel video about a transit, I might be asking you the most basic questions about your system, and then 2 weeks later I'll put out a video with all kinds of detail that I clearly didn't know when I was filming. And that's because I really just like to have a mental map of what I'm making the video about before I start doing a ton of deep research so it sticks. And I know more, why it's important because I can relate it to my lived experiences. And of course, it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, do not, in any way, shape, or form, use generative AI to write scripts. It is lazy, it is a cop out, it is a violation of who we are as human beings, as creative individuals. Just don't. Uh, I hadn't made my position on AI clear already. I have now. Um, One thing that I always like to do is look for the big picture of a video. Sometimes it's more straightforward, and sometimes you really kind of have to see what story the transit is telling you. Because every time I ride a transit, I always come away with this is the story that the transit is telling. Like for example, Sacramento Light Rail. It's an under the radar light rail, but it's actually full of really weird features that are just very unusual across American light rails. Um, okay, how do I deal with my family talking and doing stuff while I try to film on transit? Um, so typically, what I do in my videos is um I don't really keep the audio from a lot of my transit journeys. I'll just mute the audio in the video editor and throw over voiceover and music. If I am doing some kind of narration, I just politely ask whoever's with me to pause for a few seconds so I can speak directly to the camera. Great train speed, yes. Oh my gosh, that channel drives me up a tree. Um, let's see what else people are saying. No AI, 100% agree. That imply I can use my own local AI instead of ChatGPT? No, no. Um, I hate clickbait, so the LRT better be seriously weird and not just film or weird. I mean, one thing you'll see if you watch the video is I do go to a train station that is in a parking lot that has no connection to the road network. It's complete. It's like you get off the train. The only way in or out of that parking lot is by a footpath or the train. There's a like a 36 space parking lot completely disconnected from the road because they were going to build some TOD and never got around to it. I hope that's weird enough for you. Yes, talgos are cute. Quack quack. Or for example, if Lily the Rail fan is watching this, my Marta video, the thesis of that was like, that's the last time we built a metro system in this country with more than one trunk line. And people didn't really understand what I meant by the last great American metro. Like, no, LA came after, San Juan came after, but This was the last one that had more than one main line through downtown, and sort of looking at why it's the last one and why it hasn't really lived up to the same potential as Wamata or Bart. So for the VTA video, it's like this serves one of California's most important cities, and it's a fraction of the ridership of San Francisco or Sacramento or LA. What's going on? Um, we're going to skip over that question too, just because I did not anticipate this taking quite as long as it is. Um, I'll really quickly go through my introduction. Basically, I try to in the first paragraph of the video. I like to say there's three hooks to get a viewer watching your train videos. The first is the thumbnail. Second is the title, and the third is the first 30 seconds of the video. Because if you look at the retention graph for a video that you put out, a very large number of people are going to click off within the first 30 seconds. So you really need to have as much attention grabbing stuff without being dishonest as you possibly can. So that's where I like to put all of my eye candy footage, if you will, just my best shots, and through all in voiceover. That's just promising. Oh, this is the tech of a major or the transit of a major tech hub, and um, quite differently than what you're thinking it might be. It's actually just going to be a little light rail, and what's going on with that. And here's some more things that are sort of answering the questions that are posed by the title and the thumbnail and raising a whole bunch more. That's why I like to do my like three questions, and the only way to find out is to go for a ride, because then that sets up questions, and then it shows that we're not just going to be doing a like Wikipedia regurgitation. We're going to be going on a trip. Um, the never again pick really works with Caleb's nauseated look. That is true. Um, I love a good flow state for riding Heather. I wish I was in that more than I am, but what do I do if I can't afford to fly across the country to take pictures of trains? Well, there are plenty of images that you can use that are either in the public domain or Creative Commons if you use the correct attribution. Okay, so when you're writing, a couple of things to keep in mind. Number one, when I make videos, I typically do a linear narrative, point A to point B. Transit is as it stands a story, beginning, middle, end. Beginning and end being stations, end is the vehicle. Um, Not everyone has to write a video that way. Many people write great transit videos that are more sort of essay like and less travel based. I tend to do mine more travel based. Um, I usually like to introduce concepts and places just as they appear in the video. I try not to mention them or refer to them too explicitly until that Caleb in the video actually gets to those places. For ride sequences where there's a lot going by out the window, that's where I kind of like to info dump background information, but I try not to put too much in there. I don't want to just overwhelm the viewer with a ton of facts without giving them some action of riding the train and seeing cool stuff. Um, it's often good when you're writing to plan sort of when you're going to be putting in someone talking to the camera, so that the talking to the camera just doesn't say the exact same things as the script just said. It's also good to note when you're going to have graphics or maps or stuff like that, because that can make or break. Oh, hold on. Yep. That can make or break people's retention sometimes. Um, I often like to really try to find places to ask questions of the audience, because if you get people commenting, that's going to drive up engagement. Like, for example, in my most recent video, I had this question that's like, why is the horse angry? And so many people were commenting. I really liked that. And of course, good grammar goes a long way. Um, I always like to end with a conclusion where I kind of summarize the video's findings in more detail and then kind of offer my thoughts on what I just experienced on the trip that I'm showing. I do like to save most of my editorializing, my opinions, as opposed to just facts and experiences for this end of the video. Often that can result in a call to action, like, oh, let's check out this company or check out this advocacy group, check out or just be more vocal for transit like this, or take. Sometimes I even say like, take this system as a warning. If your city is going to build something like this could be how it goes, and you don't want that. Um, Sometimes I like to do more of a positive note. Sometimes I like to do more of a negative note. It really kind of depends on what the video seems to be asking for. Let's just quickly take a look at the chat here. Um, Yeah, be the Detroit guy. There's really nobody in the transit sphere that's making Detroit content. You could claim that. So much good stuff there. I mean, just the tunnel bus and the people mover. I did videos on those, but there's way more lore there. You could go way deeper into. I'm sure on the Canadian side. I mean, you got more of the Transit Windsor stuff. You've got Via Rail. You've got the new bridge that's open now. I don't know if that has any transit on it, but you can bike on it. And you've got just the segregation of the bus system, where you have the county buses and the city buses, and was there perhaps some racial post World War II segregation there that may have influenced that? That would be some good and necessary history to be doing a deep dive on, and then just the plans for commuter rail and how it used to have commuter rail, and people have wanted to bring that back, and it hasn't happened yet. So much you can do just where you live, and a lot of those things that I just listed are also things that I think people would really find engaging, even if they're not from Detroit. Those are things that I find interesting. I've been to Detroit exactly once in my life, other than connecting flights. Let's see what else people have said. Wikipedia Commons allows you to generally use images so long as you attribute in the way the photographer wishes. Um, could I do the R line in Providence? That might happen. California Real Fan says, please upload this onto the channel as a video. I probably will. I might refine it a little bit first. We shall see. My thing now. Oh yeah, don't you lose your phone. That's a thing you should not do. Wolverine upgrades, yeah, so much you can do right in your hometown. Part of the bread and butter for Classy Wheel for a while was Lancaster, where I lived at the time. Once I'd run out of my rail pass footage, I posted so much about the Strasburg Railroad and Red Rose Transit and just like abandoned train wrecks, that sort of history, and eventually branched out to Philadelphia. And only then did I start doing stuff like Classy Wheel versus New England and that sort of thing, with the one exception of my Pittsburgh trip, but that was partially also to see family. Um, and this is probably the most important thing I want to stress. If you take away one thing from tonight, it is be fair, don't be snarky. And this is something that I've seen, unfortunately, a lot of content creators um, falling into, where because something is less than it should be, it can become fodder for jokes and mockery. And I have definitely participated in this in my years of making YouTube. So I'm not entirely like above any of this, but I have one thing that was really eye opening to me was talking with a transit employee who was like, when people make content about things that transit agencies could do better, the transit agencies are usually aware of the drawbacks of their system. It's not like the content creators are necessarily bringing anything particularly novel to their attention. Like, for example, yes, the fact that there's no through running in New York City is a thing that people are aware of, or the fact that SEPTA regional rail doesn't have very high frequencies is a thing people are aware of, or that's that sort of thing. And so my rule with myself is the more systemic a thing is, the more I try to be gracious and objective about it, and the more controllable a thing is, the more snarky I tend to be about it. For example, if a train station has a clock that displays an incorrect time, or if it has poor signage, or if maybe there's an issue with cleanliness, that's something that I'll tend to be a little bit more negative or snarky about. Or if a system was just planned very poorly, um, even with that one, I tend to be a little bit more. I try to be a little bit more objective about that. Um, but just in general, consider this is my golden rule. Many of you out there have told me that you want to go into the transit industry either in the next couple of years or when you're a little bit older, when you're out of college. Consider that whatever you put on the internet is forever. Even if you delete it, it may end up somewhere else. So consider that if you're making a video about a transit agency, you may be talking about your future employer. And so if you're going to be giving criticism, try to make it constructive. Try not to take cheap shots too much. Um, again, I haven't always practiced what I preach here, but that's something that I tend to try to steer towards more these days. Let me take a look at the chat. That was a bit of a soapbox. Um, okay, let's see what people are saying. Yeah, no one seems to be talking about conceptual ideas for new lines in LA. Um, I mean, I feel like people have done that in individual videos, but I can't think of any creators off the top of my head who have sort of made a name for themselves as like that's the thing they do. And LA is such an untapped place for rail transit, especially. I mean, it used to have the largest electric railway in the world, and now it's, you know, for a city of its size on the global scale, has very, very small amounts of rail transit. Um, oh, Sammy's been around since the Red Rose videos. Dang. Oh, it's lagging. I'm sorry, guys. Let's see. Your only transit option is Greyhound. That's a situation. What else? Bringing model trains on via rail and using them. That would be an interesting video. I'm not sure where you're going with that, so I really want to see where you're going with that. Oh yeah, someone says it's easier to draw a line on a map than take community feedback, gauge stakeholders, secure funding, etc. Um, That is absolutely true. Just the process, and that's actually that right there. That could be the concept for a video. How do you go from a line on a map to an actual line? So much material there to go into. And JB said this in a video. They tend to know about their issues, but just can't fix them. But popular opinion can help fix the gap, like with the D line here in LA going down Wilshire. Um, yeah, I think that's generally a good framework to have. Um, I think just taking cheap shots can get old quick and can really turn people off to what you're trying to say. But at the same time, I think that sometimes being having a little bit of an edge to it can be helpful, especially for advocating for things that are very fixable. Um, what else do we have here? I think we shall continue. Now, you know what I said about cameras? The best camera is whatever you have. Complete opposite advice for microphones and gear. The best mic is whatever you can afford. The setup behind me cost about $250, and I do not regret a single penny I spent on that. I don't know that much about different kinds of mics. These are just what seems to be good to me at the time. It's worked out for me so far. But definitely get a good mic if you're interested in also maybe recording music, get an audio mixer. If not, maybe a USB mic is fine. Get a pop filter. That's going to make or break your sound because it's going to block all the P's and T's. Um, One thing that I really found very annoying about my old videos, looking back at them, is how much better the writing ended up being than the production, and that mostly comes down to the fact that I was using just the cheapest mic I could find on Amazon, and it was really bringing down the quality of my videos. And before that, I was using my camera mic, which was also not a particularly good source of sound. Let me plug my phone in here because I'm running off of my hotspot, and if my phone dies, you guys will all lose me. So let me plug this in here. Random Transit Adventure says, "Hey, that's my audio interface." Yeah, I actually took it to make this PowerPoint, and then I put it back where it belongs. Thank you for letting me borrow that for this picture. Um, let's see here. Want to target the Chicago suburban niche? Um, yeah, absolutely. So much to do with that. Sammy, I do not have home internet. I pay Verizon's $20 a month unlimited hotspot. I also use like an Xfinity hotspot that's local as my backup, but I don't have like a router or anything for my apartment. Um, that said, if you're going to be buying, a lot of audio gear, don't worry about the audio software. Use Audacity if you're on Windows; it's free. Use GarageBand on Mac; it comes with your computer, and that will do the trick. Oh, really? Your mom shows her students my videos during their indoor recess. That is awesome. That is also why I don't swear in my videos. But tell her thank you. That's so cool that she does that. I didn't know that. I guess Um, I guess there's a educational element to my to my videos that appeals to your mom's students. That's so cool. Um, I do have a day job with great Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi at my workplace is so good. I uh, I definitely enjoy using that. When you are delivering voiceover, I have a couple of standards that I hold to for my own videos, and you guys can take these or leave these for your own videos. Um, Try to pronounce things as clearly as possible. I get a lot of flack in my comments for how I over enunciate everything, but that is deliberate. I found that, especially growing up in high school, college, sometimes I'd have to repeat myself for people to understand me when I was speaking. And when I went into education, and then more recently, I'm now an occupational therapist working with the geriatric population, you really have to be clear with your diction to get people to understand you well. And so I carry that over to my Classy Whale videos as well. I really try to stress that, or I really try to make sure there's no ums or uhs or likes in my voiceover. Obviously, I'm doing that as I'm talking to you, along with whatever this is with my hands that I do whenever I live stream and nowhere else. Um, but in my voiceover, never ever try to do that. I also try to be as animated and expressive as I can be when I'm doing voiceover. I had someone told me that Classy Whale video sounded a bit like a bedtime story read by a tired grandpa. And I was like, okay, well, I need to. I started trying to speak faster and trying to speak with more inflection and excitement as I'm delivering my voiceover. And I also try to minimize mouth noises just by drinking warm water and trying not to eat, ice cream or something like that in the couple of hours leading up to filming. But if you stumble over a take, you don't need to worry about it. What I like to do is I record myself reading my scripts and then I chop it. I go back through and I remove any sections where I stumbled over something or I said like or paused or burped or whatever, what have you. And I cut it all down to just the parts where I sound professional and organized. And so it sounds way cleaner than it actually would if I was actually talking to you. But this is something that I found can really, really elevate your voiceover to sound more professional and to more easily draw people into the world of your video. Let's see what people are saying in the chat here. Oh, Audacity is getting some flack. Oh, I did not know that. I've been using GarageBand for years, so I'm really not acquainted with what's new in the Audacity world. So maybe do your research before you download anything from the internet onto your computer. Um, let's see. Oh yes, Xfinity upload speeds are notoriously bad. Before I got the unlimited hotspot, I would upload Classy Whale videos on Xfinity. It would take all night. Um, but it saves a ton of money. Um, let's see what else people are saying. Yeah, Hunger Transit Fan says, don't be afraid to say multiple takes in your voiceover. I use Audacity and the video editor to cut out the flubs before I cut everything together. Got some microphone recommendations. I listen to the audio as I'm doing long builds in Minecraft. Oh, nice. Classy will burp blooper reel when. Okay, well you've inspired me. that may be happening. Please make transit bedtime stories. That could also be happening. You guys are giving me some great ideas here. Um, oh yes, don't feel bad if you can't read something right the first time. Sometimes you got to reread something like 6 times. Absolutely true, Sammy. I have had certain things where I have stumbled and stumbled and stumbled, and I have a couple of outtakes. I don't know where they are. I don't even know if I still have them. Where, like, Calcadon will be um, sitting in another part of the room, just reading quietly, and she'll just like start teasing me about it, and it's really funny. It's all good natured, but it, you don't realize how hard it is to say something like I can't even think of a good example off the top of my head, but like a specific phrase until you say it 10 times and you never get it right. Um, Reaper is something that people are recommending. I've never used this, so I can't vouch for it, but might be good to research. Um, let's see. RTA choking on rice reel. Please don't die, Random Transit Adventures. We like you. Um, Yes. The Hungry Transit fan says they usually cut out 30% of their voiceover every time they stutter or mess up on a word. As you can see, this is for the Taunton Station video that I made recently. The original audio goes a little over 6 minutes, and the edited goes a little over 4 minutes. So I removed about 2 minutes of bad takes right there. Sometimes it's a completely normal phrase, but when you read from a script, your brain doesn't want to do it right. Next, edit. Free editors are great. If you have a Mac, you already have iMovie. iMovie is a powerful, powerful tool that people 20, 30 years ago would pay an arm and a leg to use. And it really taught me so much just from trial and error about making good videos. I've heard good things about DaVinci Resolve for Windows, but I've never used it personally. That said, a pro editor is better. I use Final Cut Pro for my videos, and it just has so much more functionality than iMovie by leaps and bounds with audio and visual, and you can have more different things going on, better transitions. You can blur faces. I've only begun to scratch the surface of it. I have learned through trial and error that sometimes if you don't import GoPro footage right, it will come out all choppy. And a couple of my videos, including Marta, are weirdly, weirdly choppy, but I've since fixed that issue for future videos. I'd say if you are investing in making content over a long period of time, or if you just want to make one really, really good piece of content, but especially if you're doing long term, first thing you need to buy is good audio. Second thing you need to buy is a good camera. Third thing you need to buy is good editing software. That's basically the order that I started upgrading my equipment in. Although for me, I got audio and video upgraded around the same time, but should have gotten audio first. Let's see what else people are saying in the chat. Some people are recommending some other softwares. Someone says, I used to translate radio ads. That's an interesting job. I would always make sure I, the non-pro, could read my script and fit it in the standard 30 seconds. Yes, absolutely. Practicing is good. NJ Transit says DaVinci is so good. There's an endorsement right there. A couple of other people recommending some other things. And lots of people have different. Oh, DJ Pizek is here. Hello, DJ Pizek. Okay, so the way around flickering lights and bus head signs, apparently the refresh rate on those things is sometimes a little bit differently synchronized than whatever camera you're using. I'm really not a camera guy. If Walter is watching this, he's probably going to roast me in the chat. I truly do not know much about cameras, despite the fact that my entire side hustle is based around using one. But you can go into the advanced settings of GoPro and change the flicker rate or something like that. You might want to Google this and it'll come up with the exact name of the setting, but there's a couple of different flicker settings that you can use. And I've had to flip back and forth between them because apparently vehicles made in Europe and vehicles made in the US have different flicker tolerances or refresh rates or something. It's all very complicated. Someone explained it to me once and it made a lot of sense when they said it, but I clearly didn't interpret it well enough to be able to pass that information along. I'm sure people in the chat are, people in the chat are probably shutter speed. Yeah, that's the thing. Thank you, Random Transit Adventures. Let's see, resolve. Okay. Let us continue here. So this is my editing process. The first thing I do, I call pass one, or initial visual or timeline assembly, I guess. I take that finished voiceover and I drag it into my video editing software. For the introduction of the video, I don't put anything. I just put a black rectangle as a placeholder. For the body of the video, which is generally a linear narrative of I started here, I went here, I went here, and then I ended here. That's where I cut together all the footage from the journey. I leave gaps for whenever there's going to be a map or a reference to another video, and then I do another black rectangle for the placeholder. For the second pass, I start to assemble things. Now that I've gone through the whole journey, I'm familiar with my footage and I know where my best clips are, so I take those and make the introduction. I also take some of my less good clips, and because I don't want to repeat too much footage, and put them in the conclusion of the video. Then the last thing I do is I make maps and graphics. Maps make or break a train or transit video. I cannot tell you how many otherwise wonderful videos I've seen from many, many up and coming and even established transit content creators who go light on maps, who don't, um, you know, invest as much time as they could on making maps, because transit is inherently a very visual spatial thing. And the more you invest in your maps and the more you invest in showing, I'm going from here to here, and this is what's along the line, the more your video is going to shine. And I've had to learn this the hard way, unfortunately. I remember when I first started making videos, showing my dad one of my videos, he was like, I appreciate that you're making videos, but I have no idea where you're going. And that really stuck with me. PowerPoint is great. I don't really use any fancy motion graphic software. I really respect people who do, but I make all my maps in PowerPoint with animations and then just export them as video files. Then I synchronize the speed and pausing to the video in Final Cut Pro. Let's take a look at the chat. Talking more about DJ Pete's sake and stuff about cameras. Yeah, all of this I believe is going to be posted as a recording later if you want to come back and reference it, but absolutely screenshot whatever you need to. um, then the last thing I do is I go and I do final audio assembly. I take some royalty-free music from YouTube's music library. Usually I like to use hip hop for kind of slower transit systems like light rails. I like to do electronic music for faster systems like metros or the REM. And then I like to do more country or folk or rock for intercity trains, unless it's like the Northeast Corridor or I'm not going to be filming this, but if I was going to be filming, say, the Eurostar and the Ice Train and Flix Train, I would probably want to use some like fast electronic music for that as well. But again, not filming any of those in the next month. You heard it here, not happening. Editing tips from me. First of all, use a lot of external shots of the vehicles at the beginning of your video. PowerPoint animations work great for maps, like I said. Maps are very important, like I said. Don't be afraid to cut stuff in the edit. If you feel like the video is dragging, experiment with cutting stuff out. When I took a music composition class in high school, my professor said the most important end of the pencil is the eraser. The more you know as a creator what material sings and what material sinks, the more you know what to remove to make a smooth flowing video. If there's something that feels like it's slow, try cutting it in half or removing it entirely. Often I find that sometimes if something is tangentially related to a story, I just won't include it, because then everybody in the comments will be commenting that I left it out and drive up engagement, even if it's something that's not really necessary to the story. Like, for example, in my VTA video coming up, I am not going to be talking about the Silicon Valley BART extension. I feel like that's just too tangential to the story I'm trying to tell, but everyone is going to be commenting. I'm already calling it now. Everyone is going to be commenting about that. I do like to synchronize cuts in my videos with, places where I pause in the voiceover just so it doesn't feel too janky or disjointed. I generally don't like to show clips for more than about 3 seconds unless there's something very interesting visually happening or it's something that I'm talking about during the voiceover. And I cannot stress this enough. Maps are so important. Cities Transport Detroit. I have ridden via rail quite recently, actually, from Montreal to Ottawa. So check out that video if you haven't already. Getting audio levels to match is a hassle. I know, DJ Pete's like, it's so annoying because typically I have to crank the music way down and I have to crank the voiceover way up. I generally try to match everything to my camera audio, but even that is inconsistent depending on where I'm filming and how close I was to the microphone. I generally like to have a Wendover Productions video up while I'm editing and just play both videos at the same time. And if I can't reliably hear my voice or Sam's voice over each other, it sounds like just two people having a conversation and talking over each other. That's when I know my audio is balanced. Then upload. Like I said, make a title and a thumbnail. Really hone in on stuff that's very attention grabbing, bright colors, big concepts, something that promises this video is unique. This video is going to say something unique about something you've maybe heard of before, but not in this way. Or maybe it's going to be presenting something that's brand new. Current events always are a hit, especially if they're big things like closing a commuter train or opening a floating bridge. I really running out of time here because I do need to eat dinner with Calcadon real soon here. But if you want more thumbnail tips, absolutely drop them in the chat or ask me on Discord. I'd be happy to give you feedback on thumbnails. Again, do not Do not use generative AI for any of your graphics, any of your maps or thumbnails or anything. There's channels that I otherwise respect very much that do this, and it just annoys me to no end. Um, and then just think about what questions do your thumbnails make people ask. I'm not going to pause and have us do this because, again, time, but really be intentional about leaving. If the viewer sees your thumbnail and your title, they should have more questions in their head than before they saw it, and not just, oh, that looks nice. They should be like, okay, well, why did he not get any sleep? Why was there a circulator bus in Boston? That sort of thing. Then release schedules are. I've noticed that people really have. I'm almost done. We're wrapping it up. Love you. Calcadon was just poking her head in because food is ready. So we're just gonna very quickly finish this up, and then I'll just go back through the chat and take a look at whatever everyone has to say. We'll probably be done in about 5 to 7 minutes. Um, if an upload doesn't initially do well, consider changing the title or the thumbnail to make it more engaging. But whether a video does well or not, consider it a learning moment. I've noticed that creators, unless you're a creator who is just innately super duper talented right from the get-go, and that usually comes from all kinds of practice and experience outside of YouTube or on previous channels or video projects. Typically people who build a following tend to do so not by making great content right out of the gate, but making okay content and making that regularly and being consistent, building a following. That's very cold take, but truly, truly true. Um, Keep an eye on metrics. I don't have time to talk through all of my metrics for Classy Whale. Just a couple thoughts on running a channel. I like to have consistent branding. Every thumbnail has the whale. Every thumbnail has the red text. Topics are always pretty similar. I'm not going to really be doing a Classy Whale video about freight trains. I'm not really going to be doing a Classy Whale video about, stuff that's not about railroading, even if it interests me, like a TV show I like or something like that. It's always going to be more or less what people expect, but new variations on a theme. I do really like to draw people in. I love running my Discord. I love my Discord. You guys are amazing if you're coming from my Discord. And if you haven't joined, please join. We would love to have you. I love doing contests for people too. I really want to pull people up whenever I'm, making videos. I really want to work with smaller creators, bring smaller creators up because I'm still a fairly small creator, and bigger creators like Tom and Miles have really, really helped me, and Alex Davis. So I want to pass that along. There's also money involved in running a channel. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. Part of the reason that I make videos is to have money to go on trips. I'm an occupational therapist. I'm still paying off student debt. It would be irresponsible for me to travel a fraction of the amount I do on my actual salary from working my OT job. I have things like rent to pay for. But that's why I have Classy Whale. That's why I make videos. One of the many reasons I make videos in order to be able to have these adventures and meet all these people and see all these cool trains. Three main ways to make money. One is from Patreon. Thank you, all of you who are subscribed to my Patreon. You are you make my videos possible. Also, ad revenue. The more watch hours a video gets, and the more clicks it gets, the more advertising YouTube can put on the video, and the more money I then make. So it does incentivize that you try to optimize videos that are going to get the most views, which then creates more ad space for Google. It's sort of a positive feedback loop, positive in the most literal sense. I don't know about the ultimate ethics of that. And then sponsorships are another way that I can also make money. That happened very recently for the first time when a couple of sponsors reached out to me. They're like, hey, can we sponsor some videos? And I'm like, I guess I'm big enough for that now. So I haven't really gone seeking out sponsors quite yet, but a couple have approached me. This worked out pretty well. Outside of sponsorships, which is, I believe, confidential, I do make anywhere between 1.2K and 2.5K per month off of Classy Whale. And part of that goes into taxes, saving for taxes, because you do have to pay taxes on your YouTube income. Part of that goes towards a budget just for family expenses, and a large portion of that goes back into making more videos. And you guys have already shared a lot of your questions and thoughts and comments. And I do really need to go and eat dinner with my wife and go to sleep because it is getting a little bit late. But thank you, all of you, for sticking around and listening to me ramble about making videos. It has been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to take one last look through the chat. So get your last burning questions and comments in. And let me have a look here. Going back through. Okay, if my video uses a voiceover, I'd like to add some on-screen text about something if it's a good mention. Um, that is a really good strategy. I don't do a ton of on-screen text, but a lot of creators, especially, I don't know if you guys ever watched Tanner. He makes videos about trains in Japan. He's excellent with the on-screen text. He's much more diligent about that than I am, and he does a great job with that. Um, yeah, shout out to Sam from Wendover. DJ Pete Six says making thumbnails and maps are one of my favorite parts of the editing process. And Cities Transport Detroit. Posted the Detroit airport. That'll be pretty cool. Um, what am I having for dinner? I'm not sure yet. We shall see. Do you think it's important to upload your script to the subtitles so people don't need to use audio generated ones? Um, I typically rely on the auto generated subtitles for my uploads. I think they've done a fine job. Um, but that is something that I do wanted to research more about since I am an OT. I want to be accessibility minded and don't feel like I've entirely done my full due diligence on learning how all that works. So I will report back when I do that. Um, Eat the veggies. Yes, I will be eating veggies shortly. See, random transit adventures. I would question if you're alive, except for the fact that you're on my Discord all the time. So I definitely hear from you pretty regularly, which is a good thing. Sammy says, I've been making content for 6 years now, and I'm just starting to pop off. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Absolutely. Classy Wheel TV show reviews. Yeah, there's a few shows that I would love to do kind of a deep dive on, especially Speechless by ABC. Random Transit Adventure says, "There's my video." Wait, where's your video? Oh, in yes, DC Dreamin', where you did you rickrolled all of us. That was fun. Um, oh yep, Rip Spirit Airlines. Yes, Sammy. Hopefully, I'll see you on Sunday or sometime very very soon. We definitely need to meet at least once before you head on back to the Southlands. Um, you would join Patreon to watch Caleb react to Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I have actually not watched. I know a couple of references. I know the Secret Tunnel song because I came up on my YouTube algorithm and we referenced it in the Hudson Bergen Light Rail video, but I've never actually watched the whole show. Um, I do want to come to Ireland. That will, unfortunately, I've been saying I'm definitely not going to places. I will actually not be going to Ireland this fall, unfortunately, but it is on my list of places I do want to go in the medium future. Um, yeah, well, you know what? You stay classy as well, chillaxin, and all right. Well, we are going to finish up here, and thank you guys all so much for coming. I think I'll be posting this as a recording, but I definitely think that this may end up being an actual video on the channel as well in the near future. We shall see. We shall see. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I'm signing off here. Good night, all. How do I turn this off?